Thanks for joining me. This is a review of the Jinhao 59, a relatively new release of fountain pen, another copy of a pilot favorite. Just for size comparison, you can see this is my traveler's notebook in the card size, the 20th anniversary card size. So you can see the pen has quite a small footprint, which is why I was interested in it. Let's move this out of the way. So I opted for the silver with black. It has Jinhao inscribed there on the clip, and it's a nice looking pen. There's not much weight to it, but also to be expected given the price. I paid about $11 for this pen. It's very nice looking. The nib, I purchased a fine, I believe. But so far, I've only had one problem with this pen, and that is it doesn't write. So here is just some copy paper. It's like the ultimate in dry starts. So let's just pull it apart and make sure that it is inked up. So removing the back, it has a ink converter. My words have escaped me today, so let's just pull that out gently. So you can see that there is plenty of ink inside this cartridge. It's actually filled with the Robert Oster Coffee Monster brown color. We can see that there is in fact ink inside that cartridge. So the first time I filled it, it worked. I left it overnight, went to use it the next day, just dry start. In fact, I couldn't even get it started. So then last night I left it nib down in a cup, just thinking that it may feed that ink down into the nib, but it didn't. So let's just ink up the nib so I can show you the actual breadth of that nib. Like, what could go wrong? Let me just put that to the side. I mean, you saw me dip it in, right? And I have had this pen write before. So there is ink on that nib. Okay, that's better. Let's see if that will get it started now. This ink is gorgeous. It's a deep brown. So you can see when the ink is in the nib, it actually writes really nicely. I feel it is quite broad for a fine. It's not as fine as a pilot fine. So what are my thoughts? I find the nib is really smooth. It does write well when it writes. But for me on the daily, if I had this pen carrying it around with me with my journal, I wouldn't feel that it's reliable. It's too much work to get it started. So now that I've dipped it in the ink, I'm not quite sure how long it's going to last. I can see that it is lightening off already. So I'm not quite sure whether I'm using the ink that I dipped into that ink pot or whether that was enough to get it started. Try the other side. it is smooth. And I do feel like the ink is kind of dying off now a little bit. So look, my personal opinion, I don't have the patience to faff about with a pen every time I want to use it. It was only $11. It does write nicely once it writes. But for me, I feel like there's some kind of fundamental flaw with this pen. Maybe too much air is getting into the nib, which is drying it out, and which is giving me a dry start. I'm not prepared to just do this much filling. So it's a no from me. However, it is a gorgeous looking pen. It's very light. It looks great. I don't know whether the Pilot would perform better. I assume that it would. It does come in some different colorways, which is so frustrating. I've had pretty poor experiences with Jinhao so far. I find that I'm paying for a cheap copy and it performs like a cheap copy. So look, it's not one that I would recommend. But if this was an entry level pen and you were willing to play around with it, sure, for $10, $11, it's worth a shot. But for me, it's just too much hard work. Have you tried the Jinhao 59? What's your experience been like? I'd love to see a comment below. Let me know. What do you think? Are we just actually encouraging the duplicates business by buying these pens? Do you think we should be giving our money to the big boys, to the Pilots of the world? Or what are your thoughts on it? You know, is this a duplicate? Should I have the expectations that it works well, given that it was only $10, $11? I know this is a little bit of an existential conversation, but I'd be really keen to know your thoughts. So this is my second Jinhao that I've purchased and my second disappointment, but I know other people absolutely love it, and I'm not quite sure why, whether it's just because they've had better experiences with these copies, or they haven't experienced a high-end pen before. I'm just not sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts, guys. Let me know.